Call the meeting to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes from last week, 22nd, I believe.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment period. Just a reminder that no personal attacks are allowed. If anybody wishes to address the board. Just state your name and township.
My name is Sue Van Gorp and I'm from Yucatan Township. This is regarding the Erickson mine. What is really going on here? Are we in some type of altered reality where the rule of law and reason mean nothing? Which part of not being the responsible governmental unit do you not understand? If Erickson has been released by the EQB, show us the letter. Doesn't disregarding Judge Walter's ruling mean anything to this body? You had better rethink that because Judge Walters has scheduled a hearing for June 23rd to clarify and enforce that ruling. The DNR has sent a letter saying silica sand mining within 1 mile of a trout stream needs a setback permit from the DNR. Will you ignore that as well? We have a letter from your own land use attorney Jay Squires and Bob Scallon himself to Tracy Erickson saying the permit is expired. Is that to be dismissed as meaningless? How is a permit that expired 1 year and 3 months ago not expired? The non-transferable CUP has expired. Erickson and Scanlon cannot argue simultaneously that the pending EIS and EAW prevented his permit from expiring and that this board can now take action on that permit. The same conditions that existed before the permit expiration in January 2013 exist today. Either the permit is expired or you do not have the authority to consider it today. You cannot argue two contradictory things at the same time. Erickson lost this exact case in court when Houston County was a defendant. The judge ruled he did not have the right to mine, even in the more limited sense that occurred since 1992. Erickson refused to respond or appeal, and so that judge dismissed the case with prejudice. That means it can't even be brought up again. Erickson knew the ruling prohibited him from mining or he would not have written an ex parte letter to the judge asking for the prohibition to be dismissed. The judge ignored this and the ruling stands.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board this morning? Linda, would you like to move ahead?
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Is it turned on?
It is turned on.
Oh, now it's
Now it's on. Okay.
okay.
I am here today because I would like to ask the board if they would like to proclaim May 8th as Children's Mental Health Awareness Day in Houston County. The state will be doing that, and I'm hoping you would like to follow suit. And really, the day it's appropriate to set it apart each year for the direction of our thoughts and our help toward children who could be mentally ill or have that potential. And really, it's just all about protecting children. So if you would go ahead, that would be great. I don't know if I need a motion. Do I need a motion to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to.
Okay.
I'll second it.
May 8th.
May 8th.
Judy seconded. Further discussion? I think it's a very good proclamation. Be proud to do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, thank you.
Linda? Oh, do you have, is this the one? Okay. Sounds good. A date or two? Sure. Thank you. Okay, and I believe Tess doesn't have anything to report at this time. She's going to report in 2
Next
weeks.
week? Oh, 2 weeks or?
Well, we don't have a meeting next week.
Oh, that's right. You're all right.
Yep. Yep, so that's why we're
Election
here.
training.
Election training, we have a week off, huh? We have nothing on the consent agenda, huh? Okay. Unfinished business?
Bills coming. Claims? Do we have claims?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't pass
Haven't
it
been
yet.
down here yet.
Unfinished business? Justin, you want to?
Sure.
Just a
Report?
little report, yeah.
Sure. We had, yesterday morning, we had our frac sand ordinance writing committee meeting, and I thought it went very well. The group that's there, I think, does a good job of bringing up questions and kind of looking at both sides of the issue and compromising and doing that. Some of the things that were discussed at the last meeting were setbacks. Dan Cheska, our GIS coordinator, brought a map in that showed some of the setbacks from like the trout streams and other waters in the county, as well as setbacks from wells and feedlots and stuff. So it was really educational to kind of see that, to see a visual of what those setbacks actually do. Also, there was an overlay of some of the speculated deposited areas in Houston County where sand might potentially be. So it was kind of neat to see those setbacks and how they affect those areas. But other than that, we just kind of talked about some of the setbacks, and we're going to have some more discussion on that at the next meeting. Everything from setbacks from houses, from roads, from
Bluffs.
bluffs, trout
Wetlands
streams,
and-
wetlands, residential, public areas such as parks, trails, stuff like that, city limits, all kinds of stuff. So that'll be coming up for the next discussion. So it's progressing along. I think I'm very impressed compared to the last study committee. It's going well. So we'll keep going on that. One of the other things too, as far as the frac sand stuff, I just wanted to bring up too for some discussion here. And Sue Van Gorp kind of brought up some of these things too, but just to clarify, I know on Wednesday, the Planning and Zoning, the Planning Commission is bringing up the Erickson permit. And I just wanted to clarify the board's intent, I guess. Last week we made a motion that was to have the Planning and Zoning work with Erickson's on their permit. And I guess I was under the impression that when we had made that, it was to work with to try and get some of these issues resolved as far as the court order, getting that clarified, and as far as the regional governing unit to get it clarified that the EQB is still in charge of this property. We need to, for legal reasons, we need to get that clarified, that are we even capable of making some of these decisions if we handed off our regional governing to the EQB. So I guess I would just make point that those things I feel need to be resolved before we can really go forward with this. So I just wanted to clarify that, and if need be, I would move that those issues get clarified before we can.
Yeah, I don't think we need a motion at this point yet. They're just, I understand it's going to be a public hearing, when then they'll discuss all those issues at that time.
Sure, do we need to give them some direction that we need to do
No.
that? You don't feel that there needs to be
No.
direction?
I don't, not in advance.
Okay. Well, I guess I will still move that we give them the direction that the EQB needs to be resolved and figured out, that if they are still the governing unit and we need to get the court order clarified before we can approve this permit, just to make sure we're crossing our Ts and
But
dotting our
wouldn't
Is.
that come after it comes back to us?
Well, let's just wait, see if there's a second first.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion, what now, Judy?
Wouldn't we take this up after it comes back from the public hearing?
Here's the kicker. According to our own zoning ordinances, renewal of permit doesn't have to come back to the board.
Yeah, but they always do. I thought in our
I don't
zoning,
think it's gonna,
Yeah.
pardon me?
I don't believe it will.
So we're just trying to make sure that if they don't, we need to make sure that this is clarified, because we may not get a chance to clarify what we're trying to do.
I think I need more information. Yeah.
I
Reading and
also do,
motion.
because I remember reading some stuff about where the EQB was at with this too, but I don't
Would you
have it
read it?
here to pull up right now.
Because I got an email that the EQB said they have not released or gone back on that yet, so that's my concern, is has it been looked at?
I didn't see that email. Did it come to all of us?
See what it came to. I can get,
And I know that Rick was supposed to be in contact with Will Seifert and Jeff, I can't think of his last name right now,
mhm.
as part of the process. And I just haven't got a report on it yet.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because I know it's going on Wednesday to the planning commission, so I want to make sure that's been looked at first before we start moving too
Maybe
far.
we should need to
Wouldn't it be
talk
nice
to
to know if
zoning.
we are the RGU before we go ahead and do something?
Yeah, but I think we need
Can we
to,
call Rick in and ask him that? I would rather be able to
Sure.
ask him directly.
I visited with Rick and Bob on Friday for 2.5 hours. And we also did a site visit at Erickson Mine.
okay.
And I still have questions. I would-
Hi, Rick, the board's asking.
I don't know why it's going on with 2 other mines at the same time.
All right.
It's a pretty important decision. This would be a big decision to make. And I too wonder if his COP didn't expire.
And I've had many
It
conversations
was
with...
supposed to be renewed in 2012.
And I've had many conversations with Tracy about it, and I don't have an issue, 8 to 10,000 yards of construction and stuff, but I want to make sure that we're doing this properly, that it's not going to come back to bite us or bite anybody else in the end, that all of a sudden say, wait a second, you didn't have the authority to make that decision yet. So we need to make sure that we have that authority still before we make that decision. I just want to clarify that. And it looks like, from all indications, that it's going on Wednesday, and if it gets approved or something, I just want to make sure that we have the authority to do that.
Justin has some questions for you, Rick.
Sure. Okay, so here's the question. I know that on Wednesday, the Erickson permit is coming before the Planning Commission. The question that I know the board had before, when we were talking to Jimmy and stuff too, is as far as the EQB, at least we haven't had any documentation for any formal release being the RGU. And the court order, I know, even Jay had mentioned too, about getting clarified as far as does that still stand now that Tracy has divorced himself from Minnesota Stands? Does that court order still stand? I know there's discussion about trying to clarify that. And the question that I had was that, before this permit goes too far along the process of getting permitted, we need to cross our T's and dot our I's that we're doing things legally, that we have the authority to do that stuff. And I guess the question is, where are we at on those two issues?
As far as the discussion that we've had with Jay, was that when the divorce took place, we did get the request to proceed. We are under the 60-day rule, started February 27th. The discussion we had with Jay, basically, yes, it's going to need to be determined. And as far as our discussion with Jay is that the judge needs to clarify that, and that's being done.
Okay.
But that still does not preclude us from probably proceeding just from the mere fact that, I don't know how legally you want to,
Well, I mean, we can't, technically, you could, if the court orders that he can't excavate, you couldn't proceed, then come back and say, oh, sorry, you can't. I mean, you'd have to have that clarified before you would proceed, right? I mean,
well,
you couldn't go out
according
there
to
and dig and then
Jade,
say,
according
wait a
to
second,
Jade, and that maybe the judge's decision went over above and beyond, and that we should proceed, that was his recommendation.
Well, if I remember correctly, one of the things he had said was he would prefer that we get that clarified so that we know. I mean,
Right, right.
so,
But he
So-
also recommended we proceed with this because we are under the 60-day rule sitting here.
So you could bring this up at the 60-day and have the hearing on Wednesday, and it could be denied until we have more information. Is what could
So-
possibly happen?
and then the last question I got too is, two questions. The 60-day rule, I guess I'm kind of unclear how that ever came back to be that all of a sudden you have, Tracy says, okay, I'm no longer associated, start the clock now. I mean, who made the decision of when the 60 days starts and why? You know, those are just some of the things that we're trying to get a handle on. And like I said too, I've had many discussions with Tracy, and I understand his desire to excavate for some construction stuff, and fine, if you've got a permit to do that, that's fine. But my issues are we going about this in a legal way that's not going to come back to bite any individual, whether it be Erickson's or the county or anybody in the end? Are we doing things in the proper manner? So the 60-day rule, I guess, I question how that ever came to be. If we've got a court ruling that needs to be clarified, would that get on hold until that's clarified? I mean,
There was, with the EQB, I've been talking with Will Seifert. Anyway, this all started when we did get, Tracy brought discussion up with us as far as his disillusion with Minnesota Sands. That happened in September, and that he came in the end of February with the actual, not only the document that did distance himself, might say, with Minnesota Sands. The contract, the business contract that they have is now null and void. He did have his extension request came in under the gun back in November of 12. He had until January 8th, I think, to basically request that. And that's when January 8th of 13 is when his renewal had to be done. So he came in with that request in November of 12. Timeline-wise, as we were going through, that's when they took it upon themselves then, as figuring it's a sand pit, and they went forward with the frac sand and to mine, which the county then stepped forward, and we issued, we had the moratorium on, and we did issue those 2 stop work orders, which stopped the sand going forward, or from them mining. It then went to court, which the court didn't proceed at all. The county then petitioned to dismiss that case with prejudice, which was granted by the judge. That's when his ruling came forward too. From talking from our attorney with the request that came in after that, it's no longer a frac mine, but it's under his old permit that we're proceeding with, that he applied for back in 12 for construction purposes. It's no longer dealing with the frac issue. And that's why going forward, if the 60-day rule is sitting there, and I think, as you know, we can have one extension, and that's what we're under come as of today, we're under the 60-day or the 120-day. If we do not act on that permit within that time frame, and it's legally under that, it's an automatic approval by the government. We're trying to avoid that yet too. Going forward, that's why we're putting this thing before, at least before use, and then we can make that call as far as approving it going later on.
So one of my last questions then is, so this permit will come back to the board?
The extension does, yes,
The renewal, you mean?
yes.
Okay, so it'll go to the planning commission, and it will come back to the board after that?
It's going to the planning commission. There's 3 different mines. There's 2 other ones besides Tracy's asking for the 5-year extension. After reviewing them and going through past history, the last 5 years, since the last 5-year extension, we look at those. That then goes back to the planning commission at their regular meeting as other business. It doesn't call for a public hearing unless there's problems with the mine, a history of different things. It just goes on the scheduled business portion of the planning commission, and that's where this is at. They'll take a look at everything associated with it that night or Wednesday night, and then that recommendation then goes back to you as a county commissioners.
Gotcha. One last thing, I know you mentioned, and I know Tracy kind of divorced himself from Minnesota Sands and has mentioned that he has no intentions of mining frac sand stuff, but have you, your office, I mean, you've gotten calls from Rick Frick about Erickson still, correct?
Yes.
So I guess there's kind of a red flag. Do you know why he would be pushing so hard for Erickson's permit to get renewed if?
Well, within
No.
the contract, when they split, there's certain agreements that both sides made that he has to abide by to make sure that he gets his old permit back. He's also, and I said too, as we've had questions with the EQB and the EIS where we're into, where does that all stand? As far as the Environmental Quality Board is concerned, whether we're in or out, they're treading new ground too, and that Rick Frick had to end up calling us and let us know too that they are no longer partners. He's also, the state EQB has asked Rick Frick and Minnesota Sands where they're at, because this was supposed to be under that EIS that does the cumulative effects of all these mines in the 3 counties. My question to them was, is how long can this go on? I mean, if nobody answers and nobody does nothing, I mean, is the thing dead, or is it still just sit there in limbo? I mean, how many years is it, or what length of time? They can't answer that. They're dealing with that now too. This is uncharted water that they're dealing with. That's the areas we're in, and we're trying to be as above board with all this and still legally meet our obligations to proceed forward with an application that we meet everything legally and everything's bound by what his old process is, or his old permit is by. We've had discussion that this permit is tied to that 10,000 yards, as far as we're concerned, per year. And that's what we're proceeding forward on. I know he'd like to go a little bigger, but that's not where we're gonna go, as far as I'm concerned. Because the old permit, he's asking for the old permit back. That's what it's tied to. He has agreed to that now, and also if he goes beyond that 10,000, then that's a new application.
Gotcha. Okay. So as long as it's coming back to the board for like a review, I guess I don't have an issue, and I can rescind my motion as long as we'll have a chance to make sure that the EQB has had a ruling on whether we have the authority to do that, and we have a chance to talk to the courts about that. My concern is that if it wasn't going to come back to the board, we need to make sure that that's being done.
Well, there is a motion in the courts. We just got notified by Jay that there is a motion in the courts for that to be looked at, what the judge's ruling was.
Okay.
And as far as the EQB, I did get correspondence, not only from this Will Seifert, that it is going to be considered by their board. No timetable on it. I'm also working with the Department of Natural Resources on whether this falls underneath whether this is a new permit that comes under the state's new requirements or doesn't. We've been having that discussion with them, so to make sure that everybody is, we're all on the same page as far as we want to proceed forward here.
When does that 120 days expire, do you know?
It's probably the end of June,
Okay.
but you go look at the end of, if Planning Commission turns around and they take testimony or something goes with any one of these here, you know, they go out and review it, come back in at the end of May at the regular meeting, then it's the timetable to the county board to get there. We're under, there's a timeline sitting there, and I don't want to say like we're in a rush, but it is. I
Well, I
mean,
know-
by the time we get through all the timetables here.
When I know, conversations that I have with Tracy too, I know he doesn't want this pushed out because I know there's some construction stuff coming, so I feel for him pushing us out there that far, but like I said before, we gotta make sure that we're doing it legally. And
That's what I'm trying to cover, all the bases to make sure everybody's,
I appreciate it, Rick.
so.
Thank you for your
I got a
explanation.
question, Rick, can I ask?
Sure.
First of all, I'd like to thank you and Bob for sitting with me on Friday and trying to, we spent time together on Friday on this issue. I still am concerned about if it's expired or not. It was supposed to expire in 2012.
Well, no, the permit actually was going to expire January 8th of 13. He applied for the extension already in first part of November of 12. 2 months, a little more than 2 months before it expired. But then what happened?
Why did that get voted, acted on at that time?
Because there was a discretionary EAW that was approved by the county board, and we were in the process of doing that EAW prior to his expiration. But then there was a petition also by a citizen's petition to the Environmental Quality Board to do this cumulative EIS, and that was agreed upon. And it was also agreed upon that the state EQB was going to take that over. When that happened, then our clock stopped. We got confirmation from the EQB that any and all permitting process, EAWs or anything else going forward was to stop until that was completed. So,
If he had won this case this week in mine, so the sand, what would have happened to the construction CUP, the original one? That would have gone away?
no, that's what he would have been operating under.
That would have been silica sand, the same permit? Would have been the same number and everything?
Yes.
But what would, I met Tracy too that day, and I don't have anything against him for mining sand, but what would be wrong with him having to get a new CUP, saying that the other one was past the time? Is it?
Well, legally, I mean, the permit
Is there a
that
problem
he,
with that, asking?
well, if he's going under a new permit, there's a whole pile of new guidelines,
Exactly.
state guidelines and everything else that would come under that.
That's why I asked that question.
Yeah, and there's,
Have you asked him if he do a new CUP?
no. You know, if you're looking at going under the new CUP, you know, where we would require probably, it could get not only time delays, but there would be a lot of added additional expenses. I would assume, you know, with the amount of material that eventually can come out of there. Right now, like I said, it's tied down to that 10,000 yards per year. We've got review that goes on it. I mean, as far as, you know, with the mines, you know, we have very little complaints that come in from most of these mines. And if complaints do come in, we do take them seriously. I mean, it's not that we just, it's brushed aside and move forward, but
So So
We
if he
do
wanted to
investigate
do
those.
more than 10,000, that's when he would have to have a new conditional use permit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rick, just a quick question for some of us out here who are citizens and so forth. You said that the permit that Tracy went for the first frac sand permit, that it would have been, I thought you just said that it would have been limited to 10,000 cubic yards. But that
That's
had,
where-
it had millions of yards.
Yes, that's the position the county took, is that the original permit was issued for 8 to 10,000 yards
Okay, so.
for construction purposes.
So since they put a permit in for like 2 or 3 million cubic yards, doesn't that affect going back and getting the old permit back? I mean, because that had to be a different permit to go for millions of cubic yards.
Well, they were under the assumption because it was a sand operation that they could just go in and it was grandfathered in.
Yeah.
We begged to differ at that time,
So
saying,
you were saying that it's limited to 10,000,
right.
right?
We begged to differ on that just because it changed the threshold of the amount of material that was coming out of there. And what kinds of effect that would have on, there's a lot of things to look at when you take a large operation like that going in, not only the air, water, it changed everything in scope. And we're saying that was a violation of the existing permit that was there, and that what we issued, that was issued back in '92. So,
That's when we put the stop work order on it and proceeded from that point.
yes, and we also, what it was also, the county had the moratorium at that time too on for all frac sand mining.
Right.
Therein lied the problem. They were thinking that this was grandfathered in, and we're saying no, that this is a new operation that falls under the moratorium.
Well, it's a huge expansion, no matter what it's for.
Right. It changed the threshold for what the existing permit was issued.
That would take a new CUP to go from 10,000 to 2 million.
Right. That's what we were saying.
All right.
And we were also saying it was under the moratorium at that time, so it couldn't go on.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Yep.
Anything in the highway department?
No, I'll talk to Steve and Brian about our next meeting, but as of right now, nothing.
Steve is out right now.
Yeah.
In courthouse issues, I don't believe that Tess has any information till the 13th, I think she mentioned. So we're waiting on that. And that's not really courthouse issues, that's jail.
Right, true.
They're actually two separate things. Okay.
Should we put / jail for a little while?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I've been doing that my own. But Commissioner reports as far as your meetings. Dana, you have anything?
Yes, last Tuesday after the board meeting, I went over to Fillmore County to the video conference
Yeah.
on health and all policies. And Mary was there and a couple staff. None of the Fillmore County.
Oh, no. And they're the ones that set it up for their
I was
courthouse.
in their room. Anyway, it was a very, very informative meeting. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of good stuff. The head of the Department of the Minnesota Department of Health, he gave the video conference, and one of the things he said is that any policies we do, we should have health in mind for the people, because what we do affects health, and social economic issues are a big thing too in that. And that it's going to start in the state, and it's going to move. It's got to go all the way down to the local, to our government. That we really should keep in mind when we're doing policies. How is it going to affect their living and their health and so on? And I think that frac sand is part of that. He didn't say it, but that's my own opinion. Is that frac sand can be social, economic issues there. One guy's gonna make a lot of money, the rest of them aren't. And also, there's the ongoing thing about the air quality, the trucks. So just to let you know, that state's thinking about things like this. We need to keep that in mind.
I'm glad you went to it. I wanted
And I think
to.
Mary would probably give a better report than I did, but she was there, took notes.
Okay.
But
We should have her do that. We'll have her. I know she's been wanting to keep us updated
There was a
on it.
PowerPoint thing, you know, we should follow along.
Yeah, that's.
It was very interesting, that guy's a very good speaker. It was kind of funny when they got done, it was a video conference with 40 some other counties. He said, anybody have any questions? Silence. Nobody in 40 counties has a question. Well, I didn't have one either. We laughed like that. Anyway, I enjoyed it.
Good, thank you.
I just had the meeting that reported on earlier.
And Judy didn't have any meetings. She was on vacation, kind of. I had the same one as Justin, and I thought too, we really had some good discussion. And also, while we're under comments, today is the open house for public health, 3 to 6. So, Rob said he'd have steaks and lobster.
Who does?
Rob said he would have some steak and lobster. I think he was just trying to make sure we'd come.
Which line item that's gonna come out?
That's the first question I said, whose budget is this? You know?
Look at the papers.
No steak and lobster, that was, but, because, yeah, I did say, yeah, and whose budget? But, and, I think we can move on to discussion items, huh? Approval of the claims?
I'll make a motion to approve claims, human services, and license center disbursements.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this is approved gambling application for Able Foundation. I think we all got copies of that in our,
I have to not vote on this because I'm vice president of the foundation.
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the gambling permit for Able.
One second.
All in favor? Aye. Blue one, too? Blue tab?
That was one for me.
Okay. And approve the Crescent Snowmobile Club application. Again, is routine business.
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next department head is Justin and Judy, May 27th. And I already brought up about public health. Any other business to come before the board?
One item I mentioned to you about Alan Stanovich.
Oh, yes.
I got an email back from him, and he apologized for not getting back to us sooner, but his dad had some health problems. We can do the tour. This is,
Yep.
okay, May 13th or May 20th? May 13th or May 20th to view Alan Stanovich at Solar House.
Yeah.
I just kind of thinking maybe go to 20th, hopefully Steve will be more back on his feet by then. I know he's really interested in going 1 o'clock.
Sure.
1 o'clock, May 20th?
May 20th.
I will get back to him on that.
Okay, you two texters. Any other business to come before the board?
I'm trying to write Stankovich's thing in my phone, because I'm gonna forget by May 20th.
Updating calendars.
So just give me a second to put this in here, and otherwise you're gonna wonder where I am, because I'm not there.
Yeah,
1 o'clock, you said?
Yes.
Right?
Can I make a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.